Ever turned up at a tourist attraction only to be told it's shut because it's too busy? Well, here in Italy, a whole town is holding up the closed sign. Also coming up on this week's travel show, we head to Brazil to explore a growing trend in the favelas of Rio.
Can't believe this guy's actually trusting me to cut his hair. Here we go.
Our global guru, Simon Calder, tackles your questions about getting the best out of travel. And this week's Global Gourmet comes from New York, where we check out the mother of all sandwiches. Cinque Terre is situated on the Italian Mediterranean coastline and is dotted with pastoral seaside villages and is best known really as the Italian Riviera. Cinque Terre is a group of 5 villages along the Ligurian Sea and it's so beautiful around here, you can see why it's one of the country's most visited. But ironically, it's the number of visitors coming here which is causing a bit of a problem. Cinque Terre is a UN World Heritage Site and officials say the rugged coastline area risks being wrecked by coach parties and cruise ships. All of the villages in this area used to have fishing as their main industry, but now they rely solely on tourism. And it's hard to understand why the authorities want to limit the number of people coming here. Visitor numbers have risen sharply, partly due to the result of cruise companies adding more Italian destinations to their itineraries as other Mediterranean ports, such as Tunisia, lost their appeal following the recent terrorist attacks. Last year, about 2.5 million people visited Cinque Terre. Now, the local authorities say that's way too much, and they want that number almost halved.
Il controllo è necessario perché il Parco Nazionale delle Cinque Terre è il più piccolo parco italiano, è un parco di poche migliaia di ettari e il numero molto alto di turisti che vengono a visitarlo impone una regolamentazione, una razionalizzazione in modo che la visita sia più bella e i residenti non siano sottoposti a uno stress eccessivo di presenza.
So do you think it's realistic to be able to control the numbers of tourists coming to this region?
Ci aiuta molto l'invenzione che abbiamo avuto di unire il biglietto del treno con l'accesso del parco ed è possibile quindi attraverso la prenotazione online conoscere con anticipo quelli che saranno i flussi.
The idea is to create a ticketing system which will come into effect next summer. It would work much like buying a train ticket, except you'll also gain entry to one of the 5 villages at an extra cost. Authorities believe this is the best way to control the numbers of people heading here. But not everybody agrees.
I don't agree with the idea of limiting for limiting's sake. I think what we need to talk about is managing tourist flows. Because there are days that you can't even walk down the street for the amount of tourists, and that's not helpful for anyone. I think a lot of the people here are worried that if you do anything, tourists are going to stop coming because they're worried. But I actually think that most tourists see that if you do something that's reasonable, everyone will have a better experience.
By talking to people here, I'm getting the feeling locals simply want tourists to stay longer, not just whiz in on a cruise ship and disappear hours later, but actually venture beyond the seafront, stay the night and explore inland by hiking or even taking a trip to a winery. Cinque Terre is also known as a small white wine region, though it's not something many tourists get to experience, in part due to the location. Most of the terraced vineyards are perched high on the Ligurian cliffs, which are spectacular. Part of my tour includes a visit to a wine bottling plant, which is handy as it's firsty work being a travel show presenter. To produce the unique tastes of the wine here, producers use a blend of 3 local grape varieties, Bosco, Alberola and Vermentino.
Super. Salute.
Shortly after my tour, Gianfranco explains how he's hoping that with the tourist caps, some visitors will stay longer and make the trip up to his vineyards.
Purtroppo i turisti stanno prevalentemente nei villaggi, non conoscono appieno la particolarità del territorio delle Cinque Terre, che è proprio questa viticoltura eroica, una viticoltura collocata sui muretti a secco, che sono il paesaggio tipico di questa località.
Can you tell me what sort of impacts the mass tourism has had on the environment here? Has it affected the production of the wine?
Il turista che frequenta i paesaggi delle Cinque Terre, quindi che attraversano i sentieri in mezzo ai vigneti, ha un approccio con la viticoltura, con l'ambiente buono. Poi magari quando arrivano al paesaggio, al villaggio, non chiedono un bicchiere del vino prodotto da quei vigneti dai quali sono passati.
And as my time here comes to an end, it'll be interesting to see how authorities manage the flow of next year's tourists. By then, the roads will be fitted with devices to gauge the number of people visiting, and once a certain number has been reached, access will be closed. Tickets will be sold ahead of time online and via an app currently being developed, and will show you which of the villages are heavily congested or sold out due to popular demand. And it's not just here in Italy where tourist numbers are being controlled. It's happening all over the world. Okay, listen up, because here is a travel show rundown of the places where tourists aren't always as welcome as they once were. In Machu Picchu in Peru, to combat the amount of sightseers visiting, authorities announced a 4-year plan back in 2015 to tackle overcrowding. Soon visitors will have to hire a local guide and stick to strict time limits at certain sites. Any visits to the mystical kingdom of Bhutan in the Himalayas now requires you to pay a daily tariff for actually being there. The tariff covers a sustainable tourism royalty that goes towards free education and healthcare. And finally, last year, Barcelona's new mayor says she intends to introduce a cap on the number of tourists. She plans to introduce a city-wide freeze on building any new hotels or tourism rental apartments. Last year, almost 8 million people visited Barcelona. Next up, we're in New York for our global gourmet. This week, it's the legendary Katz Deli, a type of place where you'll need to leave your diet behind as we check out how to make the perfect pastrami sandwich.
Katz's Deli is located on the Lower East Side in Manhattan in New York. We've been here for the last 128 years, since 1888. The secret is pretty simple. We make the food the classic way. We make sure that every sandwich that you eat is the best sandwich you've ever had in your life. Life-changing, right? Our pastrami is our most popular product. We go through about 15,000 pounds every week. We do it the old-fashioned way, so it's a very slow process. First you cure it for 3 to 4 weeks. You smoke it for 48 to 72 hours. You boil it for another 4 to 6 hours. You steam it for another half hour, and then you start cutting it. So we cook it longer than anyone else. We do it the way that pastrami is meant to be done, the way it was done 128 years ago.
Pastrami on rye, it's good.
We cook it so long that it literally would fall apart if you tried to put it through a slicer. So everything's cut by hand. The birth of Deli really has to do with food preservation. How do you take a relatively inexpensive cut of meat and make it last? What is unique here is that it's curing and smoking techniques that were specific to Eastern European Jews that immigrated over to New York in the late 1800s. And so you really get this strong blend of Eastern European spices, whether it's salt and pepper, garlic, onions, coriander, that all come together during these curing and smoking processes to make just a beautiful piece of meat.
This is a perfect pastrami sandwich.
Still to come on the travel show, we head to Brazil to explore a movement which is quite hair-raising. And Simon Calder tackles your questions about getting the best out of travel. The Travel Show, your essential guide wherever you're heading.
Welcome to the slice of the show that tackles your questions about getting the best out of travel. But first, Britain's referendum vote to leave the European Union has generated hundreds of questions about the implications for travellers both going to and from the UK. The short answer is nothing will change until Britain ceases to be a member of the EU, and it'll be at least 2 years before that day. Until then, all the current rules on passports, customs limits, mobile phone roaming charges and healthcare remain exactly the same. What happens after that is anybody's guess. Karen Watts and her husband are celebrating their silver wedding anniversary and want a special holiday in September.
Could you offer some suggestions on good places to visit for sun at that time of the year, please? We were at first interested in the Caribbean, but are concerned about the weather.
Congratulations on your anniversary. Travel, like marriage, is all about timing. In September, the Caribbean is far too lively for my liking, deep into the storm season. Yet it's a perfect time to seek sun, sea and serenity on an island in the southern Mediterranean. Just as peak season ends, the water reaches maximum warmth. The quayside bars and restaurants are still open, but not packed with people, and you can investigate the rich heritage of the region with neither the crowds nor the intense heat of July and August. And because prices fall after the main summer holidays, you'll be able to choose somewhere indulgent and luxurious to stay and still pay much less than you would for the Caribbean. And the best options? The southernmost Greek island, Crete, for sheer relaxation, Malta, drenched in history, or Sicily, which excels for cuisine and la dolce vita. In October, Brian Williams is heading for the US. He asks,
I already have my ESTA, but in the last couple of years I've visited countries including India, the UAE and Tunisia. Will this be a problem?
It's a timely question, Brian. Travellers from many nations are able to visit the US for business or pleasure without a visa, using the Electronic System for Travel Authorisation, or ESTA. But the Department for Homeland Security has recently revoked the right to enter without a visa from travellers who visited Iraq, Syria, Iran or Sudan since 2011. They have to go through the onerous business of applying for an American visa. The only exception is for people who were in one of those countries to serve in the military or for the government of a country belonging to the visa waiver programme. It's most unlikely that the nations you mentioned would join the list, though when you arrive at the US, a border official may routinely ask a few questions about your recent travels. Finally, James Guy is off to Bali for his honeymoon and wants to know,
is it best to change money in the UK or in Bali?
buying Indonesian rupiahs anywhere outside the country is likely to give you a dismal exchange rate. Better to take hard currency, US or Australian dollars, euros or sterling, and change when you arrive. Just shop around for the best deal. Even at Bureau de Change on the same street, you can find sharp differences in rates. Remember, you'll always get good value from The Travel Show. And to get your question answered, just email thetravelshow@bbc.com and I'll do my very best to find you an answer. From me, Simon Calder, the Global Guru, bye for now and see you next time.
And to end this week, we head to Brazil, where in just under 2 weeks' time, Rio will be watched by the world as it hosts the Olympic Games. We sent Andy Akinwelere to explore a new trend which is changing the face of the favelas.
It's a city of 6 million residents, with a huge gap between rich and poor. Brazil's poverty rates have halved over the last 2 decades. Before the global financial crisis, the country seemed to go from strength to strength. But now, the people here face more uncertain times. A favela tour is one way tourists can experience a side of this city that you might not see in the Olympics coverage.
I'm often quite wary about coming on these tours because you're kind of delving into people's lives, but there's a good part to them actually, especially this one, because I think it's worth tourists understanding that Brazil isn't just about caipirinhas and beach volleyball.
Here's the gate of heaven. Okay, we got in the place.
Right, here we go. Off to heaven. This is unbelievable.
Jacinha is a sprawling favela sitting high in the hills of Rio, overlooking the city.
I live in a building, okay, close to that blue building. I live in the left side.
Since the financial downturn, favelas here have seen a spike in volatility. Tourists are recommended to go in organised groups like this.
That's our electricity system. Just believe me, it works. I don't know how, but it works.
Our tour guide Edson grew up and lives in this favela.
Usually, favelas, it's not a tourist place, you know. And of course, there are many tourists in Terrace, many foreign people in Terrace to come because it became so famous because of the movies, right? So, and of course, we want to show the reality. It's not like the movies. Even there are many Brazilians that they don't come. Okay, Brazilians don't come in this tour. Wow. Okay, just foreign people. I respect it because they get scared because of the news about favelas on the television. It's just bad news all the time. And we want to show the reality for you.
But despite the challenges that people face here, talents emerge.
Randomly impromptu samba performance by a lot of the local kids. I guess typically this is what people know Brazil for, samba, and just the joy of the people, you know.
But of course, you won't just see it up in the favela.
Because now we see favela culture flowing down from the hills into Rio's tourist central.
Events like these showcase the talents of young people from Rio's suburbs in an urban music and dance form known as funky. They take place all over Rio and beyond. But what began with music and dance now includes another vibrant side to urban culture here. It's known as the Battle of the Barbers.
This is a classic barbers competition. 20 minutes to do the best haircut. It's really tense.
Hoje em dia, a gente trabalha, além de trabalhar com a beleza, com a autoestima da pessoa, a gente consegue tirar hoje da comunidade o foco, que é o traficante. Hoje em dia, nas comunidades, quem manda não é mais o traficante. Quem os caras da favela é os parcinhos e os barbeiros. Quem manda é os traficantes. Hoje eles não mandam em nada, quem manda é a gente.
The competition happens in two parts, one for the best cut and the other for more artistic creations.
Can't believe this guy's actually trusting me to cut his hair. Here we go. Right. Like this? Like that? Leo, before you were a barber, what was your life like?
Antes de eu virar barbeiro, eu tinha uma vida muito corrida, mas hoje, devido a aparecer e dar entrevista em umas 2, 3 emissoras aqui do Brasil, meu salão é um sucesso e graças a Deus eu vou vivendo minha vida desse jeito.
When you say a bad path, what do you mean?
Eu me envolvia geralmente o que o povo diz aqui no Brasil é tráfico de droga. Me envolvi com isso, cheguei a ser preso, me envolvi com muitas coisas erradas, mas hoje, graças a Deus, eu me livrei disso e estou no caminho certo, que é o caminho do barbeiro.
3, 2, 1, there we go. Clearly a natural, eh? No, Leo, thank you very much. Obrigado.
And it seems this growing movement coming straight out of the favelas has reached fever pitch. Some of the biggest stars in the country, such as Neymar and Daniel Alves, sport these barbershop creations on and off the pitch. And with a string of football matches due to take place during the Olympics in less than 2 weeks, I'm sure you'll be seeing many more of these sharp cuts.
Well, sadly, that's your lot for this week, but please do join us next week when...
This room is a masterpiece of Roman architecture, as you can see.
We're in Rome as restoration work gets underway to restore Nero's fabled House of Gold. And it's taking a different route, crowdfunding. All of that and much, much more on next week's show. And don't forget, you can keep up with all of our travels out here on the road in real time on social media. All the details are on the bottom of your screens right now. But for now, from me and all the travel show team here in Cinque Terre on the stunning Italian Riviera, it's bye-bye.